everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jimi Wolf Talks with Jeff Dumbrack. Today we have an epic battle of Toto versus Asia. So this is Toto's fourth record, and this is Asia's first album. So both these albums came out in 1982. And Toto is basically a supergroup of session musicians. And Asia is a supergroup of British prog rock players. So yeah, they're both very talented and schooled bands with all the musicians that make up both bands. And they were both hugely successful records. And I think probably around 6 million each. So they're very, very big selling records. And I think
Who was the bigger one, Jimmy? Who sold more?
I don't know. I tried looking that up. They're both kind of equal. I thought Asia might be a bit more, but Toto did win 6 Grammys. So this album was extremely critically acclaimed. So yeah, great year for both bands, and also the peak of both bands, because the bands never achieved that level of success again. With Asia, there was quite a massive drop off. Toto, I mean, it was a drop off as well, but Toto managed to keep it going pretty consistently there. So, but yeah, both bands are very poppy. I would say kind of progressive pop rock, I'd say, maybe for both of them. But yeah, why don't I just throw it over to you, Jeff, and why don't you pick your favorite, and yeah, we'll see which of these two albums we agree is the best one.
Well, Jimmy, you summed it up quite well. I think so. I didn't know anything about these groups before. I don't own any of their music at all. Although I did know that Toto had their first big hit was in the 70s. If it was 78 or 79.
Hold the Line, yeah.
Hold the Line. Huge and awesome. And I remember that being strange to me because I always thought that was in the 80s. Like I thought they had their hits in quick succession, and they didn't. It was like 78 or 79 and then 82. That's a big jump. Like, and pop changed a lot in those few years.
Yep.
But anyway, on to the analysis. So I listened to both albums. Now everyone knows the big songs from these albums. They're ubiquitous. They've been around with us forever, and they still get massive play on the radio. And I'm talking about Heat of the Moment, Rosanna, and Africa.
Yeah.
Now, when I listen to both of these albums, I can hear the top-notch musicianship throughout both of them. Another thing that really, really sticks out is the fabulous vocals. Man, these guys can both really, really sing. The one thing I'm going to say, which definitely, how can I say this? The Asia album I found had a lot of a double-tracked vocal to beef up the vocals, or so I think. I mean, I'm not I'm a music producer, but the way that the vocals are presented is, I found that the Toto vocals are much more clear and straight up and straightforward. It's maybe they double it in the Asia record, they double, triple, and quadruple it or whatever. They stack it more like a la Def Leppard. Yeah. And in the case of Def Leppard, I love it. But the guy from Toto, his voice is so pure that I love it just on its own. I don't think he needs that. Mind you, like that, it was a new thing, I guess, back then, maybe to have, and that was their sound. Like it runs right through the album of the Asia album. I gotta say, to be honest, I didn't love it. Now, Heat of the Moment's good, but I find like the album sounds very similar. And I'm no producer. It sounds very slick. It sounds, And for a debut album, I mean, they got it right. Like, it's a big sound. It sounds like it costs a lot of money. It sounds like they were in the studio for a long time. They got these songs right. It's 9 songs long, plenty long. There's no minute and a half songs or interludes or anything like that. The songs are well crafted and well thought out. Just to be honest, I found that it all kind of sounds the same. And I think when you put your big single as, there is no doubt that Heat of the Moment is by far the best song on the album. They put it first, front and center. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you know that's the big one, then, who's like, I'm no marketer either. I don't really know much about business. So maybe that's a good technique. And obviously someone grabs that record, turns it over and sees Heat of the Moment #1. That's the record they're coming home with. There's no need to look more into the Asia catalog if that's the record you want. One thing I will say is the cover always stood out to me very, very much. I see this record in the used record bins all the time. And it really did stick out to me. I remember it sticking out a lot as a youngster too, throughout my 40 years of purchasing music. So
Yeah.
only thing is, like, honestly, Jimmy, it just, in terms of 80s hits, Heat of the Moment is ranks, low down there for me. I just didn't really love anything about the album too much, to be honest. Although I do recognize great playing, especially the vocals. The vocals were stunning. But I mean, I guess I can see, like everyone else, why their popularity just completely waned, because I just didn't think that there was anything that was super special. I think some great musicianship. They certainly wrote one banger to me. The rest of it sounds a little just blasé. The Toto record, though, very different. I liked everything on it. But I gotta say, again, maybe this is the era where you put your best foot forward first. Rosanna #1 and Africa is the last track on the album. So your book ended by the greatest tracks, the most memorable tracks.
Yeah. So good.
So
good.
And again, when I say that the Heat of the Moment is, it ranks kind of low down there on my list of, 8 favorite 80 songs. Africa ranks very highly. So,
yeah.
Let's see here, Jimmy. I just brought up the track list so I could quickly go over it and kind of describe the tracks I like. About the only one I didn't really like was Afraid of Love.
Yeah.
10 tracks. Also, if you're gonna, like, when you really boil it down, Jimmy, there's 10 tracks versus 9. So mathematically, of course, 2, it's better because you technically have more songs. And in an album, like when you're battling 2, I guess, big, huge sellers like that, and truly, besides the fact that Africa's been with me my whole life, there's nothing really. I'm not personally drawn to either of these albums. Like, I remember Heat of the Night. I remember Africa. I've always loved Africa. Heat of the Night, not so much. So Toto by far. And I also have to say, Toto opened for some big band last year, and I can't remember who it was in Toronto, but my friend from high school and her boyfriend went to go see them, and he showed me a video where he filmed, like, the concert. I'll tell you, when they played Africa, there was not a single person sitting down in the Air Canada Center, or whatever you call it now, the Scotiabank Plaza or whatever. Not a single person. And they opened, and the place was packed. So people didn't just come to see the headliners or whoever I think it was Journey, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. People just didn't go for Journey. They went for Toto too. So Toto is still packing the house, and who knows where Asia is these days. So that just goes to show you too, they have a much longer lasting legacy, and that lives with me. I can remember from my earliest. I mean, Christ, if I would have thought after, now that I know that it came out in '82, I would have thought it came out a bit later. But seeing as it came out in '82, I mean that makes sense because that's right around when I start having like my first memories of life, and I remember that song being in my life way back from Thriller, which was my first real musical memory. So, you know, I'm blabbering a little bit, Jimmy. Toto all the way. And it's also one more thing I got to say about them too. Asia's this is their first record, and Toto was their fourth. So Toto's pretty polished by this time. I will have to say honorable mention though. I mean, for the record itself sounds great. The Asia one, just it's nothing special to me. It does sound great though. The singer's really good. The musicianship is top notch. Just Toto knocked it out of the park on number 4, and
fair enough, man. Cool. So we got 1 for Toto. All right. Okay, so I'll sum it up pretty quickly here. So,
1 for Toto, Asia, no.
Yeah, Asia, no. Okay, so I'll start with Asia. So, so for me, this is kind of a crazy supergroup for me because so Carl Palmer is the drummer. He's from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is an insanely great prog band. I'm a huge fan of those guys. Steve Howe is the guitarist from Yes, massive prog band. John Wenton, the singer, he was the singer for King Crimson's sort of second formation, and he was also a singer in the band UK, as well as the bass player. And I'm missing the keyboard player, Jeff Downs, was from a band called The Buggles. They had the song "Video Killed the Radio Star." Mm-hmm. He was also in Yes, very very briefly as well. So yeah, I mean these guys have like an incredible discography behind all of them. So the fact that this band was well set up it makes sense. I'm gonna agree with you actually. I find that this album is pretty front loaded in my opinion. Heat of the Moment is probably the best song on the record. I do like Only Time Will Tell and Soul Survivor as well. Like I'd say those 3 songs I really enjoy. And then as the album kind of goes on, I find it tends to fall down a bit. There's some really cool instrumental parts that are kind of harkening back to the prog era of these guys, but yeah, I find it's like they're doing it really well. They're doing the pop thing really well. And John's an amazing singer. And what you're saying, like the vocals are very upfront. Like I remember I was listening to this on a Bose speaker the second and third time, and I actually had a little bit of trouble hearing the rest of the band over how loud the vocals were, which is fine. But when you listen to the Toto album, the vocals are way back comparatively. Let's see. This album was also produced by Mike Stone, who engineered all the early Queen records. So that's probably why it sounds so great. Yeah, because the sound of this album is incredible. I think the production's amazing. Like it sounds like they performed the whole record on a soundstage. It sounds big and yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, I do agree with you though. It does kind of. I wanted more from it, and I didn't get it. And yes, the album cover is a Roger Dean album cover who did most of the Yes records. So yeah, it's got that really cool sort of fantasy, mystical thing going on there with a sea dragon and this orb. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I maybe give this album maybe a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6.5. Yeah, now the Toto album, yeah, like for me, this album is like pure candy, right? It's just like, it's like a kid on Halloween. It takes
you all the way pretty much, does it, Jimmy?
It's just so like, oh man, it's just so feel good. It's a little cheesy, but it doesn't matter. It's great cheese, it's good cheese. I mean, Rosanna and Africa. I mean, of course, right? There's no denying the power of those two songs. You know, there is a few kind of, this album for me dips in the middle, right? It's like, it's a feeling. It's like, Afraid of Love, Lovers in the Night, So it kind of dips in the middle, but then it gets really, really good near the end again. So yeah, I would definitely go Toto as well, 100%. The only thing I don't like about Toto, and I think it hurt them, is they're kind of faceless. It's kind of like Foreigner, but more faceless, right? Because there's a lot, like everybody in the band sings on this album. So there's four singers, or three singers, three or four singers, right? And so when you hear a Toto song, you don't quite know if it's Toto or not. I mean, you know it's Toto because of the hit songs, but as you go through the record, you don't really get a sense of a brand of what this band is. It's just a really slick collection of session players, and that's the vibe I get with Toto. Whereas I'd even give it to Asia, that they have more of a band feeling to them. Like it's John Wetton on every track, and the production is the same on every track. So it's kind of like you hear an Asia song and you know it's Asia. With Toto, it's almost like some of these songs, like I wouldn't be able to guess it's Toto if I didn't know them. If I didn't know the songs, it could be any other, you know, sort of LA kind of yacht rock band from that era, right? Like it's a little faceless. Like it makes sense that a lot of these guys would also probably want to go more in the corporate direction, because they're probably married with kids at this point. So, you know, if they can have several hit singles, that would be better than having a prog rock album with a 30-minute like epic prog opus, but it doesn't sell anything. I think at this point they really need to make money, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Genesis did it the best. Like they transitioned so well into the 80s.
They almost seem to have an invisible touch, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah,
and it's crazy too, because the 80s was such a land of confusion that it's amazing they negotiated their way through that as successfully as they did.
Yeah, you know, and even though Asia was in the heat of the moment, they didn't quite.
They're pretty much just the heat of the moment, right?
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well,
I mean, you really got to give it up to Toto, because I mean, even people in Africa know who they are, right? Also, wasn't Rosanna written about Rosanna Arquette?
Oh, that's a good. I don't know.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Sexy.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look that up. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, she was dating the keyboard player from Toto at that time, Steve Picaro. Okay.
So good for him for making a hit out of it, but like they never got married or anything. So.
Well,
the keyboard player that laughs best, right?
Yeah, it's cool too, because like I think a lot of the members of Toto were on Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Really?
Yeah, so there was a lot of crossover there. They were probably working on both albums at the same time. Yeah.
Who produced the Toto album? Did they do it themselves?
That's a good question. It is. Yeah. It was produced by Toto, by the band.
Pretty cool how mind you, again, they're industry vets right now, yes. 4 albums deep, so they obviously know how to produce a record, but their record sounds fantastic to me too. Like they knew what they were doing in the studio. So
yeah, and it almost feels like Toto might even, I mean, at this time they seemed so busy, and they were having so much success being session players and songwriters too, right? Like they didn't really need to be in Toto. Like it feels like it was more of a passion project, or it was more of a fun thing that they would do together. I would imagine, because, you know, if you're in one band and your entire life and career is based on the success of that one band, then I feel like there's just so much dedication and passion that you'd have to put into that one band. But with Toto, I mean, they're all so busy outside of Toto regardless. So If Toto failed, they would still be successful.
That's true, Jimmy. But I got to tell you that even with like you don't play to this many. Like I said, that show last year with Journey or whatever. You don't play to that many people and like garner that kind of reaction without. Like again, these guys have money. Like they don't need to tour anymore. They tour because they love it, right? And they love playing for people. To me, they're I never want to use the word musical genius, right? But they are extremely accomplished musicians who are like they've spent their lives in the music business, but they like all aspects of the music business. They like writing songs. They can write songs for other people. They write songs for their own band. They're session musicians and work with other people. Like those are dedicated musicians, and they're involved in every facet of the business. So playing live is no exception. And they playing live would have to be a big thing too. So you don't just want this, the success and the paycheck of writing a song for, whoever, Joe Blow or Pat Benatar or whoever the hell else they wrote songs for. But you want the validation of being able to write your own hit song, and you also want the adulation of being able to play in front of people. Like they want it all, and rightly so. They're talented and they have it all. They've gotten it all, and again, I don't know if they're still writing songs for people, but I'll tell you, I took a quick look in iTunes, and there's a lot of Toto albums.
Yeah,
like an awful lot, like well into the 2000s and well into the 90s. I think there was one in 98. Like for a band that last had a huge success in 82, putting out an album in 98 because you can. Like obviously you're still going to play for your fans and the people that want those to buy those records. Toto fans are probably still buying records, but good on them. This is I really respect that. And that would be the kind of career I would want to have. I would want to, if I had talent, be able to look back and just not remember that Christmas jingle I wrote. I would want to be able to say, yeah, well, we had those hits, and then I was on that record, and then we played this tour, and oh man, I remember when we played with this guy. Oh, remember when fucking Def Leppard opened for us back in the day, and like can you imagine the stories Toto have?
It's interesting. So like Steve Porcaro wrote Human Nature off Thriller.
Wow.
So
amongst the greatest songs Michael Jackson ever did.
Yeah. So even just that one song on that record, he's set for like his great grandchildren are set. That
probably blew his Toto earnings right out of the water.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Another crazy fact is, John Williams, the film composer.
Mm-hmm.
So his son Joseph Williams became the new Toto singer in 1986.
Really?
Yeah. Interesting fact.
Yeah, but you said they all sing though, don't they? Or three of them?
Yeah, but he became like kind of the lead singer. So
like how?
Yeah, so you could kind of say that on 4. The lead singer, the guy with the beautiful voice of an angel. I love his voice. Bobby Kimball.
Bobby Kimball. Jimmy,
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I appreciate the raw talent of a beautiful vocal. The older I get, to me, it seems like that's what I appreciate more than anything else. Because that is, playing any instrument is a gift as well, but a beautiful voice is just a God-given gift, right? And I know that you can build both. You can build a voice, and you can build a drumming ability, and you can practice guitar.
Yeah.
But it just seems to me like there's something more inherent and innate in a natural singing, in just a beautiful singing voice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we got a winner. Clear winner is Toto with Toto IV. And, I I guess, an honorable mention to Asia. But
I mean, they did a good job, but forgettable.
it's it's forgettable. But okay, like honorable mention for Heat of the Moment. I mean
That's true. Definitely, that was a big one.
It's a pretty big banger. I mean, it's I mean, like any band that can have a song that's that good and that big. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you gotta give them their due. You gotta give them their due.
Yeah.
I never saw Weezer cover the Heat of the Moment though, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Wiki says 10 million copies for the Asia record, but I looked a little deeper. I think it's probably around 6 or 7 million, but still.
Yeah. Some insiders been padding that for sure. Some Asia insiders been padding that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're counting Heat of the Moment 12-inch single sales in that as well.
Adding
right?
the single sales, yeah.
Right. That's a little bit deceitful there, Asia.
Yeah.
Also, I think honorable mention needs to go to both bands for having such shitty names.
Yeah. Yeah. Shitty 2-syllable names.
Toto, awful name. And Asia, really bad too. And there's nothing redeeming about that at all. Just awful names.
I have to say too, I like Toto's kind of sword logo is a little cheesy as well. I never resonated with that.
Yeah,
seems like it's like it's like He-Man. It's like a He-Man comic book or something. It's kind of cheesy.
And I mean, He-Man, I don't think started for the next year, so maybe Toto was onto something. But,
yeah, maybe He-Man copied it from Toto. All right.
Yeah, awful names though for those bands. Shame on them. But, was Toto? Did it actually come from like the Wizard of Oz? Do you know what the origin of that was?
Origin of the band name? I don't know.
Okay, because well, anyway, perhaps it's best that that's lost to the ages because it is really bad. So
I mean, is there a Toto outside of the Wizard of Oz? Like, is there another Toto?
I don't know of one, Jimmy. That's why I'm incredulous right now.
Was Toto named after something else? That maybe
it couldn't be
good to look like. Is Toto like an ancient like god or something that we don't know about?
Does it mean something in another language?
Yeah. What is the meaning of Toto? A young one, baby child, asked the chief if there was a small boy, a Toto, who would like to enter my service. Young of an animal? I don't know. I have to look into this. Yeah, okay. It's an offspring, a baby, or a child, I think is what it means.
That's what the general consensus, though, is that, again, we're unanimous that Toto IV is the better album and unanimous in the fact that both band names suck. So, sorry, Toto fans and Asia fans out there, but your bands could have chosen better names. That's it.
Toto seems to also be a Japanese multinational toilet manufacturer.
So the name really is shit.
There you go. Toto Limited, yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, that was a good one, Jeff. That was fun.
As always, Jimmy, always a pleasure.
Sounds good. And we'll see everybody next week.
We'll reconvene next week.
Sounds good.
Take care, Jimmy.
Okay, see ya.